So I think the rabbis did many, many things right. I clearly do. I live my life by this. And coming out of Yom Kippur straight into Shabbat and then into Sukkot is quite a week. And I think there is one thing that we can string all of these together as we're sitting in this space, in this very holy space. And I want to argue that that one thing is God. One of the most meaningful parts of the family services that Rabbi Ann Abersman built with love over the past 25 years that I have had the honor to lead with her and will be leading in the future is the way that our teens actually help lead the service. So those of you who have been there actually have seen that our teenagers and those who have gone on now to lead some of the services here actually started in the family service. And while the services themselves are really remarkable, it's a place where if we're not sure if there's hope left in the world, there is hope, and you should come to the family services at some point over the Yamim Noraim. But it's not actually the services itself, it's the practice sessions that are leading up to them that have really become my new Elul ritual. Besides the fact that my Elul diet consists almost entirely of pizza, because we order a lot of pizza and we practice a lot. So we have pizza almost every night leading up to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's also a time when we dive deeply into the liturgy of the High Holy Days. Because leading is not only about learning the parts of the service, it's about learning the parts of ourselves and of our tradition and the liturgy. And this year we had 3 of our teens who actually grew up here at BJ who went off to college and then came back to help us lead the Kol Nidre service for the families. And during one of our practices, we explored the piyut, this beautiful poem of Ki Anu Amecha. It's a poem that offers us a series of metaphors for God and for us, the relationship that we have. And the High Holy Days are rich with these metaphors and different names for God, which we just encountered. Some of them really resonate, and some of them really don't. I'd say the most familiar images that I think come up are God as our parent, Avinu, or father, but parent, ruler, Malkenu, judge, the dean, or the shepherd who's caring for the sheep, us being the sheep. We come up as sheep a few times in the liturgy. But there are many, many other ones. And after a beautiful theological conversation with the teens and the adults who were leading the Kol Nidre service, in which people were sharing which metaphors spoke to them most right now, we created our own Ki Anu Amechas, which is something that we've done before in the service. And we've done it actually even not just with the service leaders, we've done it with the families and the children, and I'll just give you 2 of the funny ones that came up. One was, we are the armpit and you are the deodorant. And one of my all-time favorites, we are the pasta, you are the ketchup. Yes, I know, it's a good one. But in unearthing these beautiful metaphors also came up. We had funny ones, but we also had beautiful ones and challenging images that make us pause and actually reflect on our relationship with God, which changes over time and may sometimes even feel like that relationship isn't even there at all. And here are some of the ones that our leaders came up with this year in particular when looking at that beautiful poem. We are the tides and you are the moon. We are the questions and you are the answers. We are the climber, you are the belayer. We are the notes, you are the music. And part of the conversation that was also interesting was, which one should it be? Could we flip them around? Should it be that we're the music and you're the notes? It was a lot of theological conversation. And this week's Parashat Ha'azinu continues that theme of metaphors. In his final address, Moshe offers a poem filled with rich imagery of God. One of the most recurrent images that Moshe will use for God this morning is Tzor, is the rock. This image appears throughout our liturgy, Tzor Yisrael. We just said it as we were preparing for the Amidah. We also see it in our prayer for Israel, Tzor Yisrael v'go'alo, in the prayer, which we will say later. And it's even in the name that's used in the Israel's Declaration of Independence is calling God the rock, the Tzor of Yisrael. But other metaphors which we're going to see in the parasha will be God as warrior, God as father, as a birthing mother, as a provider, as an executioner, a healer. And the one that I really wanted to focus on this morning is God as an eagle. Kinesher Yair Kino al Gozalav Yerachef, which is that like an angel rousing the nest and hovering over its young, God will spread over Yifros Kinafav Ikachehu Yisaehu al Evarato, that God takes the wings and spreads them out and takes them and bears them and lifts up the children. And Rashi explains that this metaphor of God is a compassionate God that, like an eagle who gently stirs its young before entering the nest, the idea is that the eagle actually flaps its wings before and kind of rustles the branches that are up there and wakes up the young so that they know that the mother is coming. And then also the eagle, the other image that Rashi gives us is that the eagle is a bird that isn't afraid of other birds coming to attack from above. So the only fear is that people would hit the eagle with an arrow or a bow. And so the eagle carries its young on its back to protect them from any danger that might occur, unlike other birds who carry their birds through their feet and holding them from underneath. As beautiful and as comforting as this metaphor appears, it feels especially hard after the horrific anti-Semitic terrorist attack in Manchester that happened on this Yom Kippur. I imagine many of us find ourselves wishing it were this simple, even if it doesn't align perfectly with our theology or maybe even with our theology at all. We wish that it could just be that God would come in and sweep in and save us and put us on the back and protect us from all harm. But there's another way to understand the metaphor of the eagle's wings. The image of the eagle appears earlier too in the Torah, in the book of Shemot, in Exodus. Atem ra'item asher asiti lemitzrayim. You have seen what I did to Egypt, how I bore you on eagle's wings. This is what God is saying. Ve'asa etchem al kanfei nesharim, va'avi etchem elai. I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me. And then it goes on to say, now if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all the people. Indeed, all the earth is mine, but you shall be a nation, a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. The Torah, a women's commentary, interprets this line from Shemot, I bore you on eagle's wings, that I carried you out on my wings. It says, here we find God depicted as an eagle, a metaphor that evokes the way this majestic bird protectively carries its young, which we just heard, but it adds something, and it says, while training them to fly. The eagle metaphor highlights not only God's protective nature, but also the independence that a mother eagle gives her children by teaching them how to fly on their own. And I want to put this text into conversation with a teaching from the Sfat Emet. Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh Leib, alter of the 20th century, a Hasidic teacher, who his words are truth and they're stunning. And we can come to see a new understanding of how God protects us by teaching us to fly, and how the wings of the eagle may not actually be God's wings, but they might be our very own wings that we have. The Sfat Emet begins his beautiful teaching on Sukkot with a very famous Talmudic debate on the sukkah itself. It says Sukkot. It's like Sukkot mamash. Like, are they real Sukkot? Are we remembering and referring to the physical Sukkot, those booths that the Israelites built and lived in the desert? Or are they the clouds of glory? Are they the protective presence of God? Are they God's presence in our world? And the Sfat Emet argues that, of course, it has to be both. When the Torah says to dwell in Sukkot, leaving your permanent home for a temporary one, it's not just about structures. It's not just about the structures. And he writes, that is the true meaning of the freedom given to every Jew when we left Egypt, not to be stuck in the ways of nature. The true meaning of freedom, the Sfat Emet says, is not to be stuck in the ways of nature. And he interprets the verse, I caused the people to dwell in Sukkot when I took them out of Egypt, when I took them from Mitzrayim, to mean that God implanted in the hearts of Israel the ability to rise above the physical and to live in the spiritual. The Sfat Emet then quotes Shemot and uses our eagle metaphor. And he says that I have raised up the eagles, I've raised you up on eagle's wings and brought you to me. This, he says, is not just poetry. It's the power God gives us to transcend, to leave behind the weight of the material world and to soar spiritually. God gives each of us wings in our heart. This is the image that the Sfat Emet gives us. He says, God gives each of us wings within our heart to soar higher and higher, to seek and to search high above nature to find God. And he concludes, when we truly fulfill the command to dwell in the Sukkah, not just physically, but spiritually, we're no longer limited by worldly concerns. The Sukkah becomes these very anane kavod, the clouds of glory itself, a space to connect with God and all that matters most to each one of us. So he takes this idea of saying, is it Sukkot mamash? Is it the physical sukkah? And he says, yes, because when we go into the physical sukkah itself, we leave behind the material world, and we remember that we have these wings of the eagle, not the ones that necessarily saved us, but the ones that we were given because those wings are the wings of freedom. Those are the wings of freedom that were implanted in us, in our world, when we came out of Mitzrayim. And those wings, once we step into that physical sukkah, it allows us to soar away from the material world, away from all of the things that we think might be important in order to find what is holy in our world. And Mary Oliver captures this very idea in her poem, Simplicity is Freedom. She says, I'll give little excerpts. When I moved from one house to another, there were many things I had no room for. So I put them into a storage unit and basically forgot about them, she says. So one day, I undid the lock and I called the trash man. He took everything. I felt like the little donkey when his burden is finally lifted. Things, burn them, make a beautiful fire. More room in your heart for love, for the trees, for the birds who own nothing, the reason they can fly. Freedom is to fly. Freedom is to rise above the natural, and it comes when we step away from this world that binds us. We have to live in this world, but in the moments when we're allowed to and we're invited to. Just as Yom Kippur invites us to strip away the distraction and return to our essence, we will now turn toward Sukkot, which encourages us to leave the comfort of the material world in which we live in, and we have to live in, and we know that. However, we do this briefly, in a space of fragility, in a space of faith, in a space of flight. But we don't need to wait once a year for these holidays to lift us off the ground. You might not be surprised, but Shabbat comes every week. It does. And it's a quiet pair of wings. It's a reminder for us to pause and to unplug, that we carry within us this power to rise above, to soar and to seek meaning, to live in holiness, not despite the world, but to live through it. We have these wings with us always. It's not just once a year on Yom Kippur or on Sukkot, and Shabbat's just a reminder each week, but we have them in us. And this, I believe, is how God, our eagle, protects us, not by shielding us from pain, but by giving us the spiritual strength and wisdom to face it and to keep reaching upward together to connect with God or whatever name, image, or metaphor speaks to you today. Shabbat Shalom.